Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Guys on Sports. Week 17. We unfortunately missed Week 16 due to me. Forgot to hit record, but we're back, and luckily we got everybody in the fold. Zach, Rocky, Mark. What's up, guys?
What's going on? How's everybody's Christmas?
It was great.
Really? What'd you get?
I got a Christmas win.
Oh man, there we go.
Not
Well,
in
I-
fantasy, right? You're talking like the Eagles, not fantasy.
Yeah, not fantasy because
Okay.
I lost.
You did lose.
Shooting for third place now overall. Not a bad second year for my dynasty team, considering we got the
You
gold.
your last. I heard that somewhere.
Yeah, well,
That sounds like a good title for a book. Shooting for third place.
What is I don't think they call them losses anymore though when you lose by 100 points in the playoffs. What is that called?
well, it's a wash when you did it to somebody else the first round. I made out of the first round, Mark. I mean, people are having the conversation.
That's all right, man. I played a juggernaut. My team just didn't show up.
Hey,
John put a big goose egg on the board for me. It happened.
didn't even make the playoffs because I hung 200 last week on somebody.
This
Man.
the upgrade.
Imagine if you weren't 2-15, how that would have worked
Right.
out for you.
I wasn't 215. I think I was one game behind you, Park. So he's up there. He's up there, hot pants.
Hey, we upgraded our cameras, so like and subscribe, and we will continue to improve the show. I'm gonna laugh because every time you guys make a subtle movement, it looks like the camera's on like the fan, and it's like it's like kind of delayed. Especially for Mark. I mean, for Rocky, it's funny.
Hey, thanks, guys.
Like, what is
Hey, thanks.
Isn't it? It's supposed to follow you though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's
Really quick, it gets caught in metal, so it looks like you're in motion, and that makes me laugh for some reason. So
it just looks stupid, dude.
I'm gonna do it.
Well, it's all that's great, and I want to just thank you guys for congratulating me on my championship appearance. Since we talked about all your teams losing,
Team Zach. Team Zach.
it's sad.
That-
I
that-
thought we were friends.
Hey, worst to first is a good narrative.
It is. Especially in this league where everything's against you unless you're a Pasquale, which maybe was Zach adopted is what I want to know. Is it possible that Zach, he doesn't look like you and Josh. He looks different. Was he adopted?
Well, I mean, he literally used my ID to get into clubs for like 3 years, so
No,
But
kind of
that's-
looks like me.
About the clubs and how much you look alike.
And how would he be? He's in the championship. You're stupid, huh?
No, I'm saying
Anyway,
win the championship somehow with everything stacked against him because he's a non-Pasquale.
okay.
Tough road.
Yeah. Anyway, so before we move on, let's get to our social media. Why do I always call it social media? Let's get to TikTok take, where we take your comments on our social media stuff and we talk about them. All right. So normally I put a sounder here. You know what? I'm gonna put the sounder anywhere. Screw the Zoom episode. I'm still putting the sounder and the transition in. TikTok take.
Time to check my social media, yeah. To see who loves me online.
So our first comment, I believe this was on. Is this on TikTok or is this on?
These are on YouTube. Both of these are on YouTube. So thank you.
Ooh, some
putting it-
tubers.
Some tube action.
Yeah. All right. So at Michael Johnson 1015 said Jerry Ferreira said something in fantasy football that I believe also. If a player burns me once that I draft high, I will never draft that said player again. Now I'm not sure what this is in reference to. Does anybody remember?
This is a reference to Darren Waller.
Makes
True
sense.
words.
I agree. Waller is dead to me.
Oh, I want him off the team.
I think Waller's dead to himself, isn't he? Has anybody located him?
Yeah, I don't. There was a few times last week that I just. Yeah, it looks like all the passion has left his body. Okay, but yeah, I mean, I think that can be said for a few players this year. I know Josh Jacobs is probably one of them that
recording also.
Oh,
No, he's back.
I learned from last week, so I'm recording also.
All
So
right,
you
good.
were
Oh.
broken for a moment there.
am I not here?
Phil, we
Thank
missed you.
You're back.
Yeah.
Phil,
Okay.
Pause for a
You hear us
second.
still.
Yeah, my internet, I guess too many people are using it. All right. Yeah. So our second one's gonna be Blaine at Blaine Money 6948. Said, bro, I made almost the same trade. I traded Keenan and Najee for Ridley and Montgomery. Watched Ridley not do shit. Traded him week 9 for Tank Dell, and now I'm stuck with neither. Laughing my ass off. Lettuce, mayonnaise, and onions. Yeah, that's rough. I
No,
hate when you make that trade. I felt like that with Cup. But he bounced back a little bit late in the season. But I assume he's talking about your trade, Zach.
yeah, this is in reference to me trading for Calvin Ridley trading away Keenan Allen for Calvin Ridley before week 1, suffering through Calvin Ridley for about 10 weeks of football, having to trade him, and living with the results of watching Calvin Ridley go off for a few weeks and watching my players tear their ACLs and lack production, and it happened to other people. So I'm glad to share pain with a fellow fantasy footballer.
We
Keenan
were
Allen, that son of a bitch, man, he gets everybody there with these gigantic games all year long.
Yeah.
Fantasy playoffs come about. Keenan Allen says, I'm going to sit for a couple weeks.
Yeah, that sucks. Yeah.
Did the
Yeah, all
opposite
right.
of what Austin Eckler did.
So I want to ask you guys something, and for anybody that's listening to the show right now, I just want to thank you. Like we did on our live. I know there's not a lot of people that are still tuned in because unfortunately, like the 3 other gentlemen in this chat, you've been eliminated. But for you guys that stuck it out and just like us, like hanging out with us, we want to thank you. Please continue to patronize us over there at Chalkboard. Any questions you have going into next year and in the off season, that would be awesome. But I wanted to say you can still comment on old videos and look up our old videos on TikTok and give your 2 cents and kind of roast some of our takes from earlier in the year because we had a lot of bad ones. We had a lot of good ones too. But I just want to continue to get you guys over to our socials to keep supporting there.
Well, and also, if you guys watch us and like this content, try Guys on Draft, a little bit different take, same personalities. I think it tends to be a funnier show because we can kind of let loose. So, just go over there, migrate, and give us a shot. And then during the off season, we'll be trying our best to prepare you, especially people in dynasty leagues, for what's coming, maybe potential trades to do. It's worthwhile stuff.
And
Had a pretty cool moment this past weekend. Had family and friends in town. We went out to Disney Springs with some close friends of ours.
Yeah,
And we were in the middle of doing something down there, and he had a call back from one of our guys on draft episodes, and he started laughing, and he was like, "Oh man," he's like, "You remember that episode?" And I said, "Yes, I do." I said, "That was quite a few episodes ago." I was like, "Wow, you watch, huh?" And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Especially the shorts." He's like, "I try to watch that as much as possible." So it was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
I
Did you
think
really remember callback though, Mark?
What's that?
Did you remember the episode it came from, Mark?
That's why I don't watch our stuff back, man. I'm a part of it. I even said the same thing to him. I said, I don't watch this stuff back. And he said, "Why would you?" He said, "You're a part of it. You don't need to watch
No,
it back."
you
I said,
watch
"Ditto."
not the ones that you don't show up
We
for.
have one more viewer. Just right there is a reason to watch us back.
That's right.
Well,
Hey,
the ones that I'm not on, no, because I only like funny content.
Yeah.
got it. Noted. So I thought this was a perfect time to swing to Zach so he could tell you about our partners over at Thrive. Zach, why don't you tell us about Thrive?
Yeah, Thrive. If you do daily fantasy, you should definitely check out Thrive Fantasy, who we're partnered with. Thank you, Thrive. Click the link in the bio, scan the QR code on screen. There's a lot of cool things that we do. If you're a first-time user on there, you just click the link in the bio. If you already use Thrive, use promo code GUYS, and you get to take advantage of free prop squares. Like in the past, we've had Pat Mahomes 0.5 passing yards, Tyreek Hill 0.5 reception yards. Hopefully on screen, we're going to have the promos that are available currently. If not, they'll be in our Chalkboard app, which we'll talk about later. They do, a lot of cool things besides that. They got like GTD contests. NBA is something that they're a part of as well. And the best thing about it is that if you throw down 250, the whole entire 250 gets matched on the first instant deposit. So you could potentially be rolling over $500 if you, double down on that money, and it supports the show. So please do your daily fantasy through Thrive Fantasy.
Yeah. So, I mean, unfortunately, if you took Patrick Mahomes on that 0 point, half yard prop, you might have missed it. You sweated that out a little bit this week. And I'm sure we're going to talk about that and other performances like that in our next section, which is going to be our kind of end of the season recap, but we'll just call it "What Did We Learn?" All right, so guys, the waiver stuff, all that week in, week out stuff we've been doing all year. It's been fun. I think it's time for us to look back a little bit on the season and maybe even first couple rounds of the playoffs and, just get the temperature on guys and where you're at with some of the guys you were high on, low on, who let you down, who carried you. The floor is yours. Who wants to go first?
Let me. Were you gonna go, Rock? You want me to go?
You can go. I'll wait, bud.
All right. I want to come right out of the gate here, and I want to say, you know what? I was pushing the beginning of the year to get them running backs early because them running backs come flying off the board. Make sure you stable some legitimate running backs because wide receiver was deep. And although I wasn't wrong that wide receiver was deep and some of your better wide receivers didn't play parts of the year, God damn, man. How about Mount No Rushmore this past weekend? With the exception of Christian McCaffrey, all those guys that you invested high picks on or guys that you waited to take, like James Cook, Alvin Kamara, man, none of them showed up this past weekend. But yet you had guys that, like Kyron Williams, who did show up, and he was coming off the waiver wire, quarter of the way through the season, half the way through the season. So I don't know. I think I'm going to change my mindset a little bit next year, and I'm going to revert back to being a wide receiver whore, I think, in my drafts. And just going balls deep on wide receiver and just pick up these running backs late, pick up some off the waiver wire because it seems like they're around, man.
Yeah, I'm glad you said this because I was gonna say almost the exact same thing where I'm switching up my, you can almost tell who is an old school fantasy player because they do that. They do those running backs in the first top 3 rounds or so. Every running back that I liked in the early rounds, which is where I was drafting running backs, did not pan out. I mean, Eckler is becoming probably one of the biggest busts that we've seen of recent years, just of how his season's gone. Joe Mixon got me 8 points in the second round of the playoffs. You have Ramondre Stevenson, Miles Sanders, Aaron Jones, who are all running backs that I liked at their values and drafts. Stevenson picked it up at the end, but had the injury. I think what I've learned really big picture is to draft my running backs young. I don't care if it's Dino. I don't care if it's redraft. Kyron Williams, Jahmyr Gibbs, Bijan Robinson, those are all names I'm looking at. I'm just not going to invest highly on running backs. And if I am, they're definitely going to be in the younger realm. I'm not taking running backs on second contracts or maybe even near the end of their first contract. And wide receiver is where I want to prioritize.
Well, The only thing that I would disagree with on that word statement last week, Brees Hall did ball out, had 95 yards rushing, 95 yards receiving. And that's exactly what we envisioned if Aaron Rodgers had actually started and played the whole year. I think, Mark, you may have called Brees to be one of the top 20 wide receivers, but you were betting on the fact that Aaron Rodgers was there. So I agree. I think there's still some legitimate running backs, but looking at my redrafter, it looks very different than what my original draft rankings were.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's a bunch of guys that we talked about that are nowhere to be found in your top, basically RB1, RB2 starters. A lot of them are on the fringe. There's guys like, I'll say his name again, Rashad White, who's a, top 5, depending on your scoring and where you play your fantasy. He's number 3 in our league right now. Kyron Williams, who nobody was talking about. And some of the stalwarts have just been up and down. Josh Jacobs, like you said, Mark, well, hell or high water, no matter how it shook. I mean, no matter how it shook out or how we got here, he just hasn't been anywhere near what you drafted him as. I mean, we could go on down the line. K9, Tony Pollard, who's been, he's creeping around RB15, but I mean, it's been a lot less consistent than you would want for the way he was hyped, and unfortunately, Mark, how hard you were hyping him in the preseason. So yeah, I think all across the board, I mean, running backs are, to your point, Zach, getting to the point where you got to kind of treat it the way the NFL is treating it. And I mean, if you go high on one of these guys, you're really taking a risk.
I missed what was the name that you said? Which one were we pumping preseason?
Tony
Tony
Pollard.
Pollard.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, Rico Dowdle stepped in there. This is, it's proven my point now that you might not stock. I mean, look at, I said Josh Jacobs. I said to avoid him. And look, I'm telling you right now, the teams that are winning right now in the fantasy postseason and the championships are guys that waited on running back and stacked their backfield with guys like Zamir White and guys like Rashad White, and waited on guys like, DeAndre Swift and Kyron Williams. These are the guys that right now they have 3 or 4 studs at wide receiver that are just obliterating you. And now they're getting the production out of the running back too, and you don't stand a chance against these guys in the playoffs.
Yeah, I just think it goes to show if it's not Christian McCaffrey, I don't want it in the first round or in round 2. Like there's nothing I'm confident in. And I mean, 60% of ESPN fantasy leagues have CMC if they're in the finals, and that's really the only quote unquote league winner that you're seeing at such a consistent basis. The rest of it is either unfortunately taking like a premier Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson and taking the L on the injury, but what else can you do? I just think there's less risk in taking any pass catcher.
Well, I think, but even the pass catchers, like what in my redraft, and one thing that I learned is, and I did hype this guy up a lot. Debo is the best receiver in San Francisco, and I think he's the best by a lot, at least the best fantasy. Ayuk might be the better athlete, but Debo, because he catches and runs that mix, he's just a danger. I have him listed in my redraft as the number 2 wide receiver off the board. Now, part of that is JJ had a bad year. And then, then you had some surprises like people that bet high on Rashee Rice or Puka. I mean, they really got lucky this year because I don't think any of us thought they would be that good. We talked them up, but none of us thought they would be maybe legitimately top 10 receivers.
Hey, Mike, what mic are you using, Rocky? Is it from your laptop?
Yeah.
It sounds like you might be too close to it, right? It sounds like he's peaking a little bit.
Yeah.
I can try to miss it a little bit.
My bad. Didn't mean to stop the momentum there, but I was losing you a little bit.
One of the things that I learned as well, at least for this season, I mean, it's kind of doesn't matter now because if you're in the finals, you're probably keeping your lineups the same. But I mean, David Njoku is one of those low-key league winners. I mean, I have never in my life started 2 tight ends ever. I did this week. I put Laporta and Njoku in my lineup, and Njoku panned out. I mean, Laporta had the dud. Thanks, Laporta, for the first dud of the season. But Njoku, I mean, with Joe Flacco, I mean, maybe I also learned that the Browns should keep Joe Flacco and cut Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, there's a lot of rumors or a lot of fan support for that idea.
You should get comeback player of the year.
Yeah, I think 100%. And to be honest with you, if they win Thursday, which isn't an easy feat, because the Jets defense, I mean, they're phenomenal. Like I watched that game, and I think Sauce Gardner might be the best corner in the league. The thing about Sauce is he's tall and he plays tall. So it's going to be an interesting matchup. But if the Browns win and Flacco has any part of it, I think, they're an interesting team going into the playoffs, even with all their injuries. And that Flacco just doesn't give a damn. He'll throw that ball. He doesn't care. And I think
it reminds me, I had to cut you off, but they do remind me a little bit of that team he won the Super Bowl with in Baltimore. Real stingy defense. Got a couple playmakers at wide out. He's got a great not great running backfield, but good, solid running backfield. Tight end is pretty legit, and they're playing good football. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the Browns make a run. I mean, I have the Bills going, but I don't see anybody in the AFC that scares me. I mean, I know you guys like the Ravens a lot. I just still don't. I don't believe in the Ravens till I see Lamar Jackson do it in the playoffs. That's conversation probably for a different podcast. But um, I want to bring up something I learned, and I think I might have mentioned this in the past. And I talked a little bit about this in the preseason. I'll try to keep this super short, but it is when it comes to wideouts. I'm going to say a couple names: Mike Evans, Adam Thielen, Amari Cooper. Guys that you kind of know what you're getting from them. As opposed to spending high on your Justin Jeffersons, Jamar Chases, and all those guys. Now, you've gotten great weeks from them, injuries aside, but those three guys I highlighted, I believe I talked about them in the preseason. It was just to like kind of be happy with guys who have a really solid floor. You know what their career has been. They've been solid fantasy producers. And Mike Evans at this point is, potentially a league winner for some teams. I know he's really helping me a lot, along with Baker Mayfield, by the way. But just kind of banking on those guys that you were really getting. I mean, Thielen, where you get, I don't know, 10th, 11th round. Mike Evans and Cooper, you were getting on the cheap in like the 6th, probably the 5th for Mike Evans, but like 6th, 7th round for Cooper. He was an afterthought. And like I just didn't understand why. The guy's been productive every year. So is Evans. I think paying attention to guys like that more going into your draft is something to think about. These are guys that are not really hurt that much and produce.
Well, can you imagine too if Baker and Mike had started the season the way they're ending it, or
Crazy.
to that point? What if Flacco had been the quarterback the entire year? Amari's this last 4 games, he's putting up, top 5 points. So I think your point is well taken. It's good to have those guys who are going to perform.
I think you guys are hitting on some key points here. Definitely some big brain analysis as far as fantasy strategy going forward. And I want to come back to what Zach said about Njoku and bringing up tight ends. And are we paused here? Oh, holy shit. None of the three you moved the single guy. I'm talking and I'm like, oh shit, I think I'm paused. You guys were so goddamn still. It was ridiculous.
I had to set a fantasy basketball lineup real quick. I forgot.
That was weird. But anyway, to circle back to the Njoku point, what I learned is that the Travis Kelce gap has officially closed. Yeah. Travis Kelce, you have George Kittle out yardaging him. You have guys like Hawkinson and Ingram that are they're out targeting him. They're out receptioning him. And you're looking at that gap really short. And you brought up a point, Zach, about you never start 2 tight ends the first time you've done it. So I got a little wise towards the end of the season, and I got a lot of my second tight ends pretty cheap, and my second tight ends were guys like Ingram and Njoku and Laporta, and I was playing 2 tight end sets, man, like all the end of the year in a lot of my league. And I think going forward, a strategy that I might deploy now that I'm thinking about waiting on running back, like I said, I think I'm going to go high wide receiver the first 3 rounds, and in my dual flex leagues where I have not super flex, but your 2 flex leagues, I think I'm going to go 3 wide receivers and 2 tight ends, man, up front, real high in these drafts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we had the Yokohama effect happening in Kansas City. He has not been the same since him and Taylor Swift had been writing songs together. But I think it is also just are we seeing the beginning of the end for Travis? Back to Phil's point, though, on wide receivers, you would be really well placed if during the offseason you look at what do these players have in common? Players like Mike Evans, Amari Cooper, and who was the third that you mentioned?
Adam Thielen.
Adam Thielen. He might be the outlier here, but Amari Cooper and Mike Evans, they run incredible routes. They are both 215 plus. They're big-bodied receivers that can either poses great red zone threats, but they also know how to run routes. So those type of players, not a speed game, those type of players tend to play longer and play better. So who of this young crop, when we're talking about dynasties, who should you be focused on trying to trade for, trying to get? I love quick, small receivers, but they don't hold up as well in the league, and they tend to not run as good of routes, with the exception being Tyreek Hill.
You know, there are some circles, Rocky, where they say that Adam Thielen is the most technical route runner in the league, hands down.
Yeah, I just
Give the
don't
man,
recall. I don't
Just
give the
recall how
man
big
comes
he
his
is.
out
props.
feeling.
I don't recall how big he is.
It's just something about Adam Thielen that's real makes him a real technical guy. I can't really put my finger on it.
It's ridiculous.
He plays for
I
the
want you
Recall
to
how
put your
big he
finger
is.
on
It's
it.
Hey,
crazy.
real quick, trade for Cedric Tillman in your dynasty leagues. Trade for Cedric Tillman. That's all. That's all, folks.
Yeah.
By
And
the
you know
way,
what
speaking
Cedric
of,
Tillman has? Cedric Tillman's an incredible route runner. He's almost 220 pounds, 6'3". He's everything that I'm saying, which is why I was so high in Drake London, to be honest. Good
I
route
remember somebody
runner.
preseason saying the wide receiver in Dynasty that's the sleeper to get was Cedric Tillman.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
I don't know that he's performed this year, but I feel like you're right. I think next year he's going to be mixed in a whole lot more.
Cedric Tillman got Steve Smith's endorsement. Last wide receiver to get that endorsement, Cooper Kupp. Just saying.
Okay, hey, real quick, I want to mention two things that we kind of touched on a little bit, but man, Patrick Mahomes, Kelsey, whatever's going on there, Baker Mayfield. I seen the comparison today. He's having a better season than Mr. Patrick Mahomes. And you know who else is having a better season than Mr. Patrick Mahomes? A guy who just got benched in Denver, who has better numbers than Patrick Mahomes this season. Um, I don't know if you guys read about that story, what's going on there in Denver, but it's pretty wild. Did you guys see?
I know
Yeah.
he's not riding.
Isn't that mostly a money move, right?
The
Because
money
Yeah.
move. So apparently they came to him a couple weeks ago, or after that KC upset, and threatened to bench him if he didn't waive some injury clauses in his contract or something like that. So they were basically they're leaning on him. They've been leaning on him to waive some stuff in his contract, and now they're benching him because of that. I find it funny because you know that Russ and his people leaked that story, so there's no way that's getting out without it coming from him or his camp.
Yeah.
So definitely that bridge is burned, but I want to see what happens there because I believe that's um illegal according to the players union.
He seems a little uh the unlimited no longer applies. He's not as unlimited as advertised anymore. It seems like they really clipped his wings there in Denver.
Now we're just waiting for the Baltimore cuts Mark Andrews post if we're going to talk salaries and how it affects fantasy value.
Is anybody else connecting the dots here, though? I mean, we're seeing a lot of local 15 moves going on here ever since Mr. Tommy DeVito's agent entered the realm. I'm just saying.
I like the joke, but his agent's been around for a while. Just to spell it out for you guys, him and Mahomes have the exact same amount of passing touchdowns. Mahomes has thrown 6 more interceptions than Wilson. They're averaging the same yards per attempt, and then Wilson has also 3 rushing TDs. So I mean, if we're being honest, he's obviously not Patrick Mahomes, but it's not performance based at all, right? So I mean, I think this kind of, like you were saying, Mark, and I think you were alluding to, like what we talked about, is that sometimes you got to follow the money. The stuff that's going on in the business side with football can apply to fantasy. Not so much with Russell Wilson, but just in general, it's good to keep tabs on this stuff throughout the season or going into seasons to see how stuff's going to play out. I mean, certain guys getting drafted, intertwined with contract situations, definitely could kind of, be the writing on the wall for some players.
Well, I think that they stand to save 37 million by not playing in the last two games, and it opens the door for them trading him. Now, to be honest, who wants him? I mean, whoever trades, it's kind of like the Deshaun Watson thing. There has been talk in Cleveland about why wouldn't you sign Flacco, draft another quarterback, and hope that you can find some luck there. But what do you get for Watson? Do you even recover one first round pick?
I
His
heard they're going to
contract
cut him. I read that they were going to cut him, but
cut
I mean,
Russ Wilson.
yeah.
Yeah.
But think about it, shit. If you were the Jets this year and you had Russell Wilson, I think you'd be doing a lot better than you are right now. I think there's a few teams. Obviously he's not going to get the contract that he has. So if he gets cut, I mean, there will be a bunch of teams that are interested in him, I
Well,
think.
think about teams that just do, in my opinion, the dumb move of getting like an old veteran to either save face or to kind of stop bleeding. Look for the Saints, look for Washington, look for Tennessee, look for these defensive head coaches that want a playmaker at quarterback to kind of put a band-aid on until they figure it out or until they fail again. I can see any three of those teams doing it.
I think Russ is done. Much like Ciara, neither one of them have future.
Let me ask you guys a question. Phil mentioned Baker Mayfield, and I think it's a good point. I had Baker right now, if I was redrafting, would be the 10th rated quarterback right now coming off the board. So he's clearly played himself into a starting role. Is it going to be in Tampa or
I think
is it going to be somewhere else?
I think he's found a home. I mean, Tampa's not in the echelon of Drake May or Caleb Williams draft capital, so why not Baker Mayfield?
Yeah, I don't know, guys. I mean,
It's around here somewhere.
I don't know where he would go, but if
I think
if we're being fair here, right?
Hey, the Giants.
Russ hasn't played bad this year. I think he's played well.
He hasn't played bad, but he's played with one of the best tacticians in the entire league.
I mean,
really like set him up. Like I watched him against the Browns, and I can tell you, he is a step or maybe two steps slower.
Yeah.
But
I know, but that doesn't mean you got Joe Flacco.
Game plan. What?
I think
Flacco's a statue back there.
Different because it's different in how they get out. Flacco knows how to move up or move to the side to buy that half second longer to throw the ball. That's not Russ. Russ's game is movement to get him outside the pocket. It's different. It's just a little bit different, but it is to me a pretty big difference.
All right, before this turns into a Cleveland Brown season ticket endorsement here, I think, Russell Wilson should have been included in that Cam Newton firing on Twitter about quarterbacks that are now game managers and aren't difference makers. If you watch any of the games, Russell Wilson is exactly what you want out of a game managing quarterback. He is not a difference maker. He's not gonna go out there. I would not be comfortable with him in the 2-minute drill with the kind of talent that he has around him to go out there and win me a game. I would feel more comfortable having a 10-point lead halfway through the fourth quarter with Russell Wilson than I would needing him to come from behind on a final drive.
So this is where I was going with this Baker Mayfield comment. So if you're Sean Payton, you cut Russ Wilson, aren't you looking kind of for a quarterback like Baker Mayfield? He's very Drew Brees-esque, not very quick, not very tall, but decent arm. And if you can work within that system, it's an interesting scenario.
I think like the skill does mirror there, but I do think Baker Mayfield benefits from not as much spotlight, not as much expectation. If he goes to Denver, it's like, yeah, this is the guy you're bringing in. Let's see what happens. Right. He's got the tools.
So really quick, I just want to touch on what all you guys have said because this always really grinds my gears. Is number one, you're not going to find 32 difference makers at the quarterback position. You have to be able, as a franchise, as an organization, to win with guys that you can win with. You're not always going to have a quarterback that's going to win the championship or win the games for you. It's a collective thing. So yeah,
it's true. Some of them throw interceptions on the goal line.
Okay, but the guys you're talking about, Mayfield, same exact amount of interceptions and touchdowns as Russ Wilson this season. Okay, he has more touchdowns and less interceptions thrown than Jalen Hurts. No shade thrown. I'm just saying, yeah, he hasn't been great, but narrative plays a lot into this stuff. And I don't think that you're just, let's just get rid of Russ Wilson. We can do better. Let's get Baker Mayfield, who I like. I like Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
Same amount of touchdowns and same amount of interceptions, about 200 more yards passing. I'm just saying, if they're not one of these top 3 guys, they're all kind of in the same area. And I think it's affected a lot by the coaching and the roster around them.
But don't you feel like, Phil, a lot of that comes from the fact that, you know, you guys won with the greatest game manager, not very talented, didn't make a difference, Eli Manning. Like, don't you feel like that's why you feel that way? Because you feel like other teams should be able to win with a game managing quarterback like an Eli.
I like where you're going with this.
Yeah, I don't have to like sit here and defend anything because I could, but it's a joke. I'm talking to a loser franchise guy that hasn't won shit since,
Hey,
when your dad was watching football, right? So,
What
I
were the-
mean, what are we talking about? Like, you could shit on anybody you want, but the fact is that what I'm saying is true. If you don't have Mahomes, Allen, or name the other guy, then who do you have?
But I think
All
you're
right.
looking for that, Phil. But I think
Well,
every franchise in the NFL
guess what?
is looking for
When
that.
when you're in high school, right? You remember then everybody was looking for, the double D's, the peach, perfect face, the money in the bank, not good. You don't get all of those things. Everybody wants it,
Speak for
but
yourself.
you gotta deal with the world with the way it is.
Hey, real quick.
You're not gonna get 32 game changing quarterbacks.
What
And
were the
guess what?
last?
All the quarterbacks that have won, Eli Manning wasn't a top 3 or top 5 quarterback when
Okay,
he won the maybe his second Super Bowl. He got MVP votes, but
you had me, but like name the. But I mean, it's a team sport, but like these championship teams are led. I mean, the last 5 Super Bowl wins. Guess who the quarterbacks were? It was those. It was those quarterbacks.
Game changers.
who?
Yeah, but I mean, to the other point though, I mean, like you said Eli Manning, but I mean, we can go Trent Dilfer, Doug Williams. Like there are a lot of
We're in a new
quarterbacks.
era. We're in a new
Yeah, but it
era.
was a different era, 100%. I mean, you've had Patrick Mahomes, right? He won last year.
Jalen Hurts is a game manager.
I don't agree with
Joe
you in that
Burrow,
Jalen
Tom
Hurts,
Brady.
as much as I'd love to bother him, is a dual threat quarterback. That he does have a game break feel to him.
I mean, Jared Goff lost the Super Bowl. So did Jimmy Garoppolo. Like it's Tom Brady. It's Patrick
Yeah,
Mahomes.
guys, but did my camera go?
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
it's following your drink. It recognized your drink as a prettier face.
That's funny. Hold on. Hey, dude. Maybe I need to turn on the light. It's dark in here.
You're in the back cave.
Oh shit! I mean, your camera's racist. It went for the lighter image. Trade that thing in.
I do think Baker Mayfield's found a home in Tampa, though, and I think Denver is not going to get any better by getting rid of Russell Wilson, except for financial benefit.
I don't know. I think that to me, this is a deeper draft for quarterbacks than we realize. So I think that there could be some interesting picks out there.
My bad, guys.
I'm
It's
seeing.
still what are they looking at?
Whoa!
Oh,
It's
Phil,
following something.
What you got on that? What's on that extra computer over there, Phil?
What? I don't have an extra computer, you idiot.
Oh, okay. Something was bored. Oh, there it is again.
Oh man,
What is
Inception.
it looking at?
what are you looking at?
Looking at the faces on the other.
That's the Zoom, you idiots.
Some
Is
some
it-
BBC.
Those are the faces it wants to see.
It's going for the money shot.
This is scary.
This is incredible, is what this is.
All right,
Let me ask you guys a question. If the draft was tomorrow, who would be your top pick right now overall?
CMC.
You feel the same way, Mark?
One
Are
more
we
time.
talking I kind of got confused there because we were talking like college quarterbacks coming out. Are we talking NFL
Talking
draft?
about if fantasy draft started tomorrow, you had the 1-1, who do you go with?
Tyreek Hill.
Okay. Yeah, Tyreek Hill. I would go CMC because we talked about how there are so few difference makers back. I think you have to grab that one at 1-1 because I think probably at 2-1, you're probably still grabbing someone like Amon St. Brown, maybe Stephon Diggs.
Now, Amon-Ra is going in the first 6 picks. If we're talking redraft, I'm telling you right now, the three wide receivers that come off the board first next year are going to be Tyreek Hill, Justin Jefferson, Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think Chase drops to number 4. I think with the uncertainty of Burrow and also, the other weapons there, and Chase kind of, he didn't put up a Jamar Chase like year. I think you're going to see those guys be the top 3 wide receivers off the board.
I think I've learned too for like overall for this season was that I think maybe the pattern for the Bengals is they start slow. They've done it 2 years in a row, and I think that does impact your fantasy players. Joe Burrow, a trade candidate, a cut candidate. Jamar Chase didn't seem like he was going to pan out investment wise in the first round. Joe Mixon looked like average Joe until week friggin' 10. So I think I've learned that if I'm going to be drafting Bengals players just in general, speaking of Jamar Chase, I got to have insurance policies, or I at least have to have players that start very strong so it can make up for the Bengals kind of getting in rhythm near week 8 to 9.
Who do you behind CMC? Who's the next back coming off your board? Because I think I have a surprise one for next year.
I don't know.
I would have my top 5: Kyron Williams, James Cook, ETN, and Alvin Kamara with Saquon at 6. That's
You've
what
got to get. I'm telling you right now, you got to get Jahmyr Gibbs in there.
I love Jahmyr Gibbs. I just don't believe he's ever going to make it a full season.
He transitioned this year. They transitioned that offense to run through. It looked like it was going to be heavy Monty, and they transitioned to run through Jahmyr. And year 2,
Monty
it only
got
gets
hurt.
better for these running backs.
Monty broke his rib or whatever. That's why that happened.
He had a few injuries,
Yeah.
But
I like Gibbs too. I'm not so sure about Kamara, but I like Gibbs.
Well, I think Kamara because of his age, but I tell you what, he was not the problem in New Orleans. If you looked at how he ran fresh.
I just don't think that. I don't think the Saints are going to fix the problems, so that's why I don't think Kamara is going to be that much better. I do think that the Falcons probably fix the Arthur Smith problem, and Bijan could put together a full season. So I'd probably throw Bijan at the end of the first round for me. But I also like Gibbs. I like the Gibbs pick.
We also saw
and again, I don't know how much truth there is in this, but supposedly the Falcons have re-engaged with the Browns on whether they would consider trading Deshaun Watson. If you remember, they were the team that wanted him.
Yeah.
So that would be interesting. I don't think the Browns would do it unless they recoup at least one first round. And I think the Falcons might be dumb enough to do it because you're talking about another dysfunctional franchise.
I don't know. I think once they get out from the Arthur Smith era, I think all these hashtags are real. Free Drake London, free Kyle Pitts. You saw at the end of the year when they opened it up a little bit just how explosive these athletes are. Kyle Pitts had a couple of fantastic catches. Guy was wide open on that touchdown this past weekend. Bijan is an otherworldly athlete. I think once they get out from Arthur Smith, to Zach's point here, you're looking at a very potent offense. And they shored up that defense last year. They spent their money on the defense.
It's almost like somebody said in the offseason that they should have, or maybe they still can, just dump everything they have capital-wise and get Caleb Williams.
Yeah, I don't think that makes Caleb Williams. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think Caleb Williams is him. I just don't I think he's got character issues. I think he's an incredibly big baby. He cannot handle losing. He blames everybody else. He may mature, but I just can't see him being the first quarterback off the board.
And for being the front runner for the Heisman Trophy and for being in a competitive environment, for USC to put up the record they put up this year, I don't know if you can trust Caleb Williams to be the guy to go win you games, because chances are you're transitioning exactly to a franchise in the NFL like that, because you're going with the first overall pick or the top 5 overall pick. So you're going to a mediocre team that's not going to win a lot right away.
Yeah,
Well,
but
who's a better offensive mind in college than Lincoln Riley?
Yeah, but time out though, because USC couldn't stop a nosebleed on defense, and if the Bears take him, then Montez Sweat and that defense is decent.
Yeah, that's the
Caleb
Alex
doesn't
Lynch
play
they
defense.
finally solved.
But again, Justin Fields is not the problem there.
Yeah. I'm just saying that Caleb Williams or any competent quarterback or any playmaking quarterback in that top 8 that Phil says is hard to grab makes the Falcons a Super Bowl team. And I do think Caleb Williams is going to go at least top 2. He'll probably underperform his whole career, but it's still worth it in my opinion. And again, he doesn't play defense. So USC being 7-9 or something like that, or whatever their record was, and not making a bowl game is not too much on Caleb Williams.
I'm actually loving what I'm seeing right now. You know, we always say where there's smoke, there's fire, right? I'm loving what I'm seeing. Chicago, Justin Fields he's going to be the quarterback of the future. That first pick, I see they're talking about moving that possibly to the Raiders, involving Max Crosby, involving their first this year, their first next year, and a second-round pick as well. I think Ryan Poles is taking a page right out of the Belichick draft book, and I think he's going to keep trading these top commodities.
Yeah. I think
I think he wants Marvin Harrison. I think if they leave the draft with Marvin Harrison with their first round pick, I think they have an offense that you have to reckon with.
Yeah, whoever gets
Sean Johnson too, I think he's pretty damn good.
Whoever gets Caleb Williams is trading for Caleb Williams. Could be the Giants from Phil, who we haven't heard from in 2 days.
You guys won't let me talk. No, you guys are making good points, though. I mean, not much for me to add. The only thing I will add is that I do think what I learned, I don't want to talk too much about this, but I just think that the tight end market's going to open up a little bit next year. I think we got a lot of guys on the rise. I think it's not going to be the barren wasteland that it has been the last 4 or 5 years. And yeah, while you could go grab a tight end high, like you were saying, Mark, I do think there's going to be a lot more to pick from, and I don't think you have that Travis Kelce championship tight end at the top of drafts no more going into next year. That being said, close the show out. Hopefully we have listeners going into their championship this week.
We do.
Everybody want to give us one player that you think is an X factor for teams? Maybe not so much like obviously a Tyreek Hill or a Josh Allen, but somebody who you think is, flex type of option. One guy that you think maybe somebody's thinking about putting in that they should.
I'll start. Zach mentioned them already. I think David Njoku is a real player you got to look at this week. The Jets defense is fantastic, but it's better in their secondary. And I think Kevin Stefanski has actually called some really great games. I think he's going to move Njoku to that slot. And I think he's going to be open and actually get a fair amount of receptions. The other thing about the Jets, while their defense is good, their linebackers and their corners are undersized. And so they tend to miss tackles. And Njoku has been running injuries. So I think he's a player that he could stat out at like 7 to 8 receptions, maybe 10 targets, almost 100 yards and a touchdown or 2.
I'll go with another pass catcher, Rashee Rice, who got 12 friggin' targets against Las Vegas last week. There's no more Bieniemy. There's offensive sputters in Kansas City. And when they need something to happen, they're going Rice's way. I mean, to have 12 points in a very underwhelming game for Kansas City in general, and before that, to have 25 points against New England, I mean, he's had double digits in a lot of games, and I think he's definitely in flex conversations and can pay off in your championship.
Hi.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah, so unfortunately for Mark, I'm going Bijan Robinson here. No, he's been a little uneven in his play, but I think what we seen last week was them realizing it's whatever at this point. Let's get these guys out here and start,
Yeah.
putting the ball in their hands and seeing what they could really do. Chicago's defense has been good the second half of the year. It's not the steel curtain though, and I think Bijan is going to get the same touches he's been getting the last couple of weeks in the running game, and he had 7 receptions last week. I expect him to see the same type of volume, more along the lines of 5, and see if he hits pay dirt. I love Bijan Robinson if you have him on your team.
I like two pass catchers that are usually fringe that I think you should try to work into your flex this week in the championship game. First one is Jacoby Myers going up against the Colts. Jacoby Myers is one hell of a wide receiver too. I watched a lot of him last week. Guy runs crisp routes, he high points balls. He is contesting every single catch, even with the inaccuracy of Aiden O'Connell. I like him going up against the Colts secondary that Taylor Heineke just hung 229 on, and Heineke plays football, once every 14 weeks in the NFL. So I do like the way that Vegas has been moving the ball, and I think Jacoby Myers is one of the guys that you can look at. And then my second guy, I like Romeo Doubs, man. I like his physicality. I love the way Jordan Love has been playing football. They're facing a Lions team that's already, they've clinched the playoffs. I don't think they're going to be shooting for the first week bye. Jefferson just hung 140. 140. No, I'm sorry. I'm telling you, they're going up against the Lions, not against the Vikings. No, who the hell? Now I'm confused. I confused myself. Who the hell are they playing?
Okay.
Hang on a sec. Hang on. No, they are playing the Vikings. All right. So Goff moved the ball pretty well, but again, the Lions have, they've already clinched, and I like the way that Love is spreading that ball around. Romeo Doubs seems to be the guy that he's going to most often get him in your lineups.
Speaking of Jacoby Myers, last year I had Tony Pollard for $1 in our Dino League. This year I had Jacoby Myers for $1 in our Dino League. Who's on Zach's radar for best contract of 2024? You have to keep watching the show to find out.
Yeah, and then they can solidify a 4th place finish too.
Hopefully third.
Third. We're going for bronze.
One thing I would say too is, in fact, we have a guy who's playing in the championship who just found out that his quarterback's bench, Russ Wilson. And so if you're desperate, I think he would be wise to try to pick up Stidham. Okay. I also obviously with Jacoby Brissett running the offense in Washington. And there's a third quarterback that is playing, Tyrod Taylor, but I don't think the Giants are moving much. So I would.
What a friggin' cakewalk Phil gets in this championship with going up against Nick Mullins and Easton Stick for the double quarterbacks.
Isn't that the same team that just eliminated you from the playoffs?
No, because Russell Wilson, Mr. Unlimited, put up 27 points all in the 4th quarter. So no, it's different because now it's Easton friggin' Stick.
Hey, listen. All I have to say is, did I deliver that news about Russell Wilson to Zach today? Yes, I did. I did with a heavy heart. Did I also finish first so that I had a bye week? Yes, I did. Did I win last week? I also did that.
Yeah.
So, it is what it is.
But he's got to get Zach. Make sure you get this out there before the lineup's finalized. That way your brother can watch this. Please, for the love of God, get Easton Stick out of your lineup and put Aiden O'Connell in there against your brother. I know your brother probably offered you some heavy sum to play the quarterbacks that you currently have in there so that he can look at winning another championship. Don't fall for his shit. I don't care how many babysitting nights he offered you.
Wow.
Change your lineup, bud. You're going to
blow him out of the water. Disrespect. They think that you could be bought.
I think the conversation was something like this. Hey, Zach, Mom never loved you, right? Come here. And give me a hug. And something like that, where he beat him down and then he tried to build him back up. So that he's not thinking about making a move, doing a drop or add, starting another quarterback. He's just sticking with Easton Stick.
Hey, listen to Rocky. Go pick up Stidham. I mean, high-powered offense like that, you just give him the keys. He's going to drive the Ferrari. No biggie.
Hey,
Get Stidham.
he's better than Easton.
Stidham or Easton.
Hey, what,
That's a couple names. All right. Anyway, so hey, we love you. Thank you for joining us for the show. Please find us anywhere you do your social activities. At GON Podcast. That's TikTok, formerly known as Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, all that stuff. You can find us there. YouTube. Please like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell. Go to Chalkboard. Go to Thrive. Hit us up there. The links in our bios and anywhere you listen to podcasts. Guys on Network, Guys on Draft, Guys on Sports. Support, 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 support. We want to keep doing this. We love you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Oh, you're a star.